So, real quick, this is Tara Glenn, so she is the reviewer for today.
Good morning.
We did have two others, Mark, but unable to make it last minute. So
Hmm.
we are recording these so that we can then send the recordings to them to score.
Okay.
Okay. So Tara, so for the recording,
Hmm.
this is Mark Waterhouse. He is on for TLS, permanent supportive housing, chronic homeless, TLS, rapid rehousing,
Hmm.
and TLS, scattered site gateway housing. All right, Tara, take it away.
Go ahead for it.
Thank you. So I just had I think really just two questions other than the interview questions.
Go for it.
Which one is I was wondering if you could just expand on the employment opportunities that you outlined in your application, how that works, and how that assists the population that you're helping.
What do you mean by employment opportunities? Like,
So the question was, how do you currently work with local employment agencies, employers,
hmm.
or partners to advance training and employment opportunities?
Hmm.
So I was just wondering if you could go into a little bit more detail about what it is that you do.
Well, I think,
If it makes sense.
and that's kind of a little bit part of one of the questions, but I think what we certainly like to do, number one is when we admit somebody, whether any of the other three programs, is assess, their current needs.
Mhm.
If there are quite a few that maybe are a little employment reluctant at that point, but certainly the ones that do want to seek employment and increase income, then it's a matter of whether it's linking them to the workplace, which is a local employment agency in the area, or is it strictly working with the individual to find those specific job opportunities based on their job history and employment history and their skills. Um, that certainly is something that is developed over the course of our assessment period and during our, the time in the program. So whether that's, getting them to some job training
Mhm.
that's needed, whether maybe they need to, maybe the track is they need more education. Maybe they need to finish their employment or diploma equivalency. Um, I know it's GED. I know it's an old term, but whatever it's called now. But I think what I had said in my question was we have to meet them where they're at. I
Mhm.
may encounter a client and think, well, the answer would be, why don't they just work, or why don't they just do X, Y, Z? I think we need to assess them as a client-centered approach to what their needs are, what they're able to do and willing to do at that moment, and then be able to support that need. Um, it's not, it's really hard, and I think part of one of the questions after this was about, scoring in one of our percentages, but um, we really have to meet them where they are when they enter the program. And their primary need up front is the housing. Can we get them stabilized? Number one. And then after that, I think if we can do that and prove to the person that we're there to support um, and not coerce into things, then I think we can start to make avenues down there. So we just want to meet them where they're at and get them wherever their employment situation may be, whether there's um, training, education, job application, resume building. So there are opportunities in the area where there's, I don't know if you've ever heard of a program called Getting Ahead,
Mhm.
where they can attend a class that's held at a local nonprofit and kind of learn some of these basic fundamentals over the course of an 8 to 12 week cycle to maybe make them more prepared for work and or more prepared um, um, to take that step to work. They may be on the fence of whether they want to or not. So just a broad variety of things to do that. We certainly would love to have more people working and earning and increasing income, I think, but we have to be aware that when we encounter them, they not all will be ready to take that leap within those first few months anyway.
Perfect. Thank you. I appreciate that. Um, that was really the only question I had about the application.
Okay.
Then we have moving on to the interview questions. And Samantha, let me know if I mess this up, but since you have the 3 programs, I would ask you to just differentiate your answers if they're different for each program, or if
I will. Yeah, I
Okay.
think, you know, so number 1 was describe the support service your product is tailored. You know, each project has built-in case management services that provide support during the intake process and after the person is housed. I do want to add that our transitional housing project, Gateway Housing, that is more intensive. The staff meet with them once weekly during their time in the program, so that is intensive because they're in a transitional project, and certainly there's more need there to kind of navigate their needs and then get them to a place of permanent housing from the transitional housing project. So I want to be clear on that project has a level of case management a little more intensive than the other 2. But you know, the biggest thing is, so especially on intake, we've got to support the need to secure housing. Many of them have tried to do it on their own, have struggled with navigating with landlords, navigating a very difficult housing market, which you probably are aware of how tough it is right now. And really working with that individual and family to, assess their needs, make sure the permanent housing is number 1 and stable housing is number 1. And then at that point, assessing their needs and then getting those additional supports on board that they want. Health home services and mental health services and addiction services, advocacy, transportation. Those are all things that we can certainly assist with and link them to as needed. But again, I really want to stress that those are things they should want to have, and not that we're coercing them to or forcing them on them because we feel they need mental health or something like that. We are historically a mental health agency, but that doesn't mean because we have a experience of mental health that everyone that comes in our door should get or has to get counseling services. We really have to meet them where they are. And I think that initially, if we establish the trust, secure housing, help them secure housing, and then start to build that trust, we can then start to work on those individual and family needs moving forward for, more permanency in their housing and hopefully more success moving forward. But it takes time. And I think if we are in a place where we're asking them to do, well, you got to sign up for therapy today, and it's the day after they move to the apartment, we're not doing our job correctly. We're just not. We need to be client-centered, and if we're not, again, it's not going to be a path where they will receive our services and want additional supports. There's a lot of mistrust out there with agencies for whatever reason. So if we're to build their trust to, look out for their best interest and for them to try to improve their life, whether it's employment or therapy or any of those issues, then we need to, meet them where they're at. I just wanted to see if there was anything else I wanted to say in regards to the programs. I don't think so. I think I outlined in Gateway it is a little more intensive because it's transitional, and certainly there's, we want to make there tend to be a little higher need in those scenarios, and want to make sure we give that time and effort to make sure we can get them a point where they can successfully, live in a permanent housing apartment, wherever that may be.
Perfect. Thank you. So moving on to question number 2, which I can read, but I think it looks like you have the questions in front of you. So.
No, I am. Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
just to be prepared.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Well, it says, does the agency have someone with lived experience of homelessness? At this time, that answer is no. At one point, we did have a director that had some homelessness, but she's no longer part of our executive leadership. So just so I didn't want to miss that. And then, question 2, with the data. I didn't have any issues with the data points. Again, historically, the employment percentage is low. And that, it doesn't mean it's all zeros. Again, we do always want everyone who wants to work, we want them to give them opportunities to work. I think there's a balance of where they are in their life and whether they want to work, and then their ability. I think there are times where people have missed an opportunity for maybe there needs to be a step back for training and education for the person to be able to go to work in a work environment with a supervisor / boss and do that successfully. I don't think that skill set is always established. And if they've had been fired multiple times or lost their jobs and never, worked on what the barrier is, then probably the next job they apply to is probably not going to be successful either. So I think that's, again, part of our assessment process, our case management process is, what are they willing to work on? And that may take time. That may not be for the first 3 or 4 months enrolled. That may be 6 months, 9 months, where maybe then there's a point where I want to look at this part-time job or look at this group or volunteer activity. I wish those percentages were higher on the employment side. But there's a lot of barriers there, we live in a small area, in Lewis County today, and Sam knows this. There's a lot of stigma down here. It's a very small county, maybe 30,000 people tops. If people get fired or lose employment down here, unfortunately, it's a small town and word gets around, and fighting that stigma and reputation can also be a barrier for these individuals, especially in these small areas. I'm not saying people in cities don't have that too, but I think our individuals that live in like the city of Watertown or higher population areas do inherently have more employment opportunities and more, just in general, more opportunities from employers. So that certainly is a factor as well. Did I answer the question?
No, I believe so. Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. But yeah, no, that's an historically low, and I don't like that it's low. It's just always the challenge of how do we improve that while also feeling that we're doing things as a client-centered approach, without, kind of forcing the employment thing down their throat, if you will.
No, that makes sense. I primarily work in Essex and Franklin counties and Clinton County, so I understand.
Oh, well, yeah, that makes sense. You have a good idea of that. And then 3, are those in your project racially representative of those in your COC homeless population? I'm saying yes, at least for what, I'm seeing in front of me. Whoever is, we obviously use our coordinated entry. If the person on the coordinated entry is a 13, their initials are XY123, we are serving them regardless of, gender, race, any of those issues. We have certainly minorities that we're serving right now. I know our coordinated entry has a complete, anybody can apply for coordinated entry and be evaluated in that process. Our agency in general, just to give you, we are primarily a mental health agency. That's our history. Well, anyone that's ever applied for our programs, race is never even a part of that application. It's always about, if you need this service, whether it's housing, mental health services, sometimes residential services, then we want to evaluate you fairly and meet that need, regardless whether you've identified white or black or Hispanic on the application. So I feel as an agency, we're doing that. I feel the project is equitably, serving that population. I can't speak for the Tri-County region and us as a whole. Are we doing everything as possible that's equitable? I know the COC is establishing, is trying, the racial committee and trying to always look at how can we improve things. Because maybe, I think a lot of people can say, well, we're doing things pretty well, but that doesn't mean there's not always room for improvement or reflection, especially if myself or somebody else does not come from a place, from a family that may be a minority or in those demographics. So I think we just have to always look at, can we do this better and make everything as equitable as possible? Did I answer that question?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
So I don't have any further questions for you. At this time, do you have any questions for me or Samantha, I guess?
Sam, did you have any follow-up?
I did not.
Okay.
This is
When will there be, when is the time frame when then everything will be kind of finalized, Sam?
So after today, this afternoon, I'm going to send all the recordings out to the reviewers. And I'm going to ask that for them back, hopefully by tomorrow afternoon. So
Mhm.
that way, early next week, I can put together the scorecards, the debrief
Okay.
forms, you'll get those.
Okay.
And at the same time, I'll be able to put together the tiering, which will go out to the board for a vote. And that'll be an email vote, so you're on the board, you'll see that coming.
Is that an issue because I'm doing this and on the board?
No, we have many board members who are,
Okay. So there's not a
Yeah,
conflict of
but
interest then.
yeah, so yeah, I'll put the tiering together. It goes to the committee first, obviously, operations, and then it'll go to the board for a vote. And then it's just shared with membership as a final, results.
So when it goes to operations committee, is that something where you have the people that are not on the board review it?
It's an FYI. It's not even because the reviewers are the ones.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. Okay.
So the only time it's ever an issue, the tiering is ever an issue, is if once it gets to the board level for a vote, if they feel like a project went too low, if they're afraid to lose that project, that they can shift, but
Mhm.
that has never happened. So,
Okay.
okay.
We'll look forward to it. And thank you both for the time today. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
You
You
too.
too.
Bye. Okay, so who's up next? Snowbelt Housing. Oh, actually, before we do that, how did you feel for Mark's scorecards on the interview questions?
So looking at the scorecards, I am likely going to increase them. I had 2 questions that I marked him 4 points instead of 5 that honestly, I can't remember why I did that. And I didn't make notes, which I was pretty good at making notes for everything, why I scored it that way. So I don't know why I did that. And then rereading his applications and talking to him, I'm going to increase both of those to 5. As for the interview questions, 1, 2, and so 1 was full points, 2 no because they didn't have someone. 3 I loved full points. 4 I'm kind of debating on. I liked his answer that there's always room for improvement. I like that he acknowledged his own privilege, which I think is really important, especially as white people talking about diversity and inclusion.
Yep.
I was a little taken aback though with the I think we do a good job because we're open to everybody. Like that doesn't overcome the barriers to traditionally underserved populations.
Okay.
So I'm going to think about that one a little bit, but yeah.
Okay. All right, perfect. So I am going to stop recording.